part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another edition of the Reg Iron Rhoda podcast, powered by MGM Northfield Park, right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Shout out to our producer, Ty Quartz, doing a fantabulous job making sure all of you get this out there in the podcastosphere. And Michael Regai, we've got 4 teams left in the NFL, and we're going to get to the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship a little bit later on in this podcast. The Browns, not one of those 4 teams, so they made some quick work of firing Joe Woods, I think, before he got on the bus or the airplane in that last game in Pittsburgh, got rid of him, and then went out and signed, may the Schwartz be with you, Jim Schwartz, who used to be the head coach of the Lions, took them to the playoffs one year and was a senior advisor, getting back into it with the Titans, and now he's their new defensive coordinator. So give me your thoughts, Reg, on the hiring of Jim Schwartz.
Tough guy and doesn't mind anybody knowing it, Kenny, either. You know, he wears that like a badge of honor. He did that as the head coach of the Detroit Lions, and it was basically, hey, this is going to be my way. This is how I see us getting better. And as you said, you know, they were a playoff team a year. He did the 9-7 and 8-8 things, you know, a couple years with the Lions. But, you know, Ken, I'm good with it. I'm good with it because honestly, to me, you watch the playoff games this weekend, right? So, and I see it. We got now in Philadelphia and San Francisco, and in the Browns' own division, right? Cincinnati. Hey, and for whatever reason, the Browns seem to handle and play Joe Burrow and the Bengals well. Too bad they can't match that with virtually every other team they play in the National Football League. But, you know, that having been said, I hope they're seeing that, look, defensively, right? I mean, you got to be able to – that was a low-scoring game, this last one here tonight, right? Yep. San Francisco and Dallas. That's a low-scoring football game. So defense is at a premium. I think Jim Schwartz is going to make the Browns defensively, Kenny, tougher. The mindset will be of him in that mold. Now, you got to get the players. You know, you and I we've talked about that for years. That's great, but you got to have the players to do it. But I'm hoping that he has some effect, meaning Schwartz, on Andrew Berry in that, look, this is the type of defensive player I need, meaning Jim Schwartz. This is the type of guy I need. So let's see if that happens, Ken. I hope so, but I do like the hiring of Schwartz. I think he's a damn good defensive guy and will be for the Browns too if they allow him to run that defense and they get him some players.
Reg, I like the fact that they fired Woods, thank God. Upset that they didn't can Mike Prefer. He's still there as of now when we tape this on a Sunday night, so we'll expect that he remains. I guess there's some sentiment that the second half of the season, special teams-wise, was better than the first half, and Jakeem Grant, got hurt before the season started, the punt returner and whatnot. So I would have fired him, but as of now, he's still there. So at least they got rid of Joe Woods, the defensive coordinator, and they didn't wait around, right? Mm-hmm. They were aggressive. They made overtures at 5 individual coaches, got to talk to 4 of them, and the first guy in is the guy that they hired in Jim Schwartz.
Right.
And yes, he is very confident in himself, almost cocky in the belief in himself and his defenses, and deservedly so. 1 year in Buffalo, they led the league in sacks. He goes to Philadelphia and helps the Eagles beat Tom Brady and the Patriots in the Super Bowl by what? Rushing 4, dropping 7, getting pressure on the quarterback with 4. And in his introductory press conference, he said, hey, that's what you got to do. You got to put pressure on the quarterback. And we prefer to do it with 4 so we can drop 7 guys in coverage and make it tougher for that quarterback to complete passes and hopefully get to him with only 4 guys. If we need to, okay, we'll bring a 5th on a blitz and disguise it. So I like his approach. I think he brings that badass attitude that this team needs, especially when the coach is so laid back. And I heard him on a couple of radio stations this week talking about how he tries to keep a cool, calm demeanor because he wants his players to be the same way. Well, you got to have a coach somewhere on the team that's chewing somebody's ass out for jumping off sides, holding, personal foul penalty, whatever it is, and getting in somebody's face when they're out of position, lack of communication, whatever it is. And I think Jim Schwartz is that guy, and he comes in with street cred as a former head coach and a defensive coordinator 3 or 4 times over, Reg. So I really like the hire by Andrew Berry and the guys, and they worked together 1 year in Philadelphia. And Schwartz said, in meeting Andrew Berry there, he said that, you know what, maybe one day I'll get to work with you again. I'd like to work with a guy like Andrew Berry again, and he's getting that opportunity. So I think the Browns, I won't say they hit a home run, Reg, but they made a good hire here. And let's hope that he can turn this defense around like he did with Buffalo, like he did, turning the Lions around as a head coach, because didn't he take them after they went 0-16? Wasn't it in a year or so right after they went 0-16, he came in and eventually got them to the playoffs. So I like the hire, Reg. I really do.
Yeah, well, make no mistake, the things you just brought up are exactly what he's going to put out on the table. And I know Andrew Berry knows, as you said, they were together in Philly. This is who Jim Schwartz is. Now, Kenny, I will tell you, from the Detroit experience, a lot of people, he ruffles the feathers of a lot of people.
Good.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. A lot of people feel like at times he takes, that approach or a little bit too far. And, there were some players, the ones that are the clubhouse lawyers in Detroit that, thought he was too tough on them and all that BS. I love it because that's everything you just alluded to it, Kenny. It's everything that Kevin Stefanski is not. He wants to run that flat line, calm demeanor, and make sure that everybody knows he's got everything in control. And okay, fine, that's great. If that's who you are, that's fine. However, you do need that badass. I'm in here. I don't give a, what the hell the players think. Either you make plays and prove to us that you could play the type of defensive role in the defense that I'm going to have us put out there, which is one with an edge. I don't mean the edge of the football field. I mean a hard edge in how it is done philosophically. So, I love it. I've been a Jim Schwartz guy for a while. I thought, do they really have a chance to get him? But when it became obvious, and again, he was just, the last couple of years, he was, senior analyst and all those titles with the Tennessee Titans. But what he is, he's a football coach, Kenny. He's either going to be your head coach or your D coordinator. And I'm glad the Browns made this move. And I do give credit to Andrew Berry because, again, even though they work together, this is not the philosophical type of demeanor that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are. So maybe the two of them got together and said, you know what? We need someone who's going to come in here that's different than the way that we are in our approach to things, and maybe can ruffle some people to either you're going to get the job done, you're going to do it this way, and you're going to play, you're going to play with the type of, for lack of a better term, the hard-ass way we want to play football, or you're not going to be on this team. Good. I'm glad they did that because, we've talked about it enough. I'm not sure that Berry and Stefanski together are all about that and could get that done. Needed to bring a guy in that could do that. Schwartz, I think, is the guy to help make that happen.
They needed a little bit of Colonel Jessup from A Few Good Men. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. You can't handle the truth. And he's going to give him the truth. And that's what I like about this hire. I pulled a quote, Reg. I wrote it down from the other day, the press conference about the pass rush. This is quoting Jim Schwartz. The way you affect the game the most in the NFL is with a devastating pass rush. And they need, and let's take this now that we both agree this was a good hire, they need to create that pass rush with more than just Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, hasta la vista. He ain't coming back. So What's the next move for Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski and company, Reg? They addressed their biggest need, defensive coordinator. Amen. Okay, that's over and done with. So for Michael Regai, what would you advise Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski to do next for this football team?
I need 2 interior defensive linemen, right, that can really be run stoppers, that are guys. Look at the 2 guys. Look at BJ Reed, the 2 guys that the Cincinnati Bengals have.
Yep.
Right in your own division. BJ Reader and Hill, right next to him. I mean, Kenny, these guys, again, they're 340 pounds, and you're not going to run the football into the A and B gaps against these guys. Now, we've seen that. And I know you're going to tell, I've already said it. For whatever reason, the Browns play the Cincinnati Bengals well. But you can't just do that against one football team. Right. You got to be able to play that same way against everybody. So that's got to be the start. And then, Ken, I want to see that linebacking core. You're probably going to have to make some moves because you got linebackers that are strong safety size. So, that's what I want to see. And I think Schwartz has certainly already let Andrew Berry know we got to get bigger and we need to get more physical so I can play my style of defense with our front 7, period.
I'm with you on both accounts, Reg. For me, get me at least one defensive lineman and another rush end, an edge guy to go with Myles Garrett. Okay. Ideally, you want 2 different and 2 new defensive tackles if you can get them. But give me one impactful guy, okay? If you're not going to be able to get 2, then go get me the best defensive tackle that's available via free agency or if you have to trade. And I'm not talking in the draft either, Reg.
No,
because
I agree.
The window is start winning next year with the money you're paying Deshaun Watson, right? So that you don't want to develop a guy over the next 3 or 4 years at defensive tackle. You're already trying to develop those guys you've drafted the last couple of years. You need a proven defensive tackle, Pro Bowl caliber defensive tackle to put in the middle, and then somebody else to go, play with their hair on fire and get after the quarterback opposite of Myles Garrett. So for me, those are the 2 moves, and then the linebackers, because 2 of the guys that played well this year, you don't know if they're going to be 100% when the season starts, right? Anthony Walker, they're bringing him back. If he and I'm drawing a blank. He went down late in the season. Taki.
Oh, Taki.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So those guys, who knows if they'll be ready at the beginning of the season. And so I'm with you. A linebacker, a thumper, man, somebody that, that is going to make plays and, at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, isn't going to swing and miss or get run over by these running backs because you're 215 pounds, 225. Give me somebody minimum that's 235, 240.
Yeah.
That's a physical presence out there. And so for me, those are the biggest needs, and that's all on the defensive side of the ball. But that's where they need the help, in my opinion, Reg. So those would be my next moves for the Browns.
Got to have it. Got to have the assets that we just talked about at those positions. Because, listen, I'm sorry, I don't care how great a young man has been, maybe in those positions in college, like Jalen Carter right at Georgia. But first of all, Kenny, you're not going, unless you trade to move up, you ain't getting him anyway. So, no, I can't take that chance anymore. I can't take a chance on a kid being drafted and say, well, he was excellent in college. It's a different thing. It's a whole different thing. So, yes, you're going to have to go trade for it or get it in free agency. And if you got to overpay a little bit, if the guy's got a proven damn track record, then you do that, period. Because
Absolutely.
you have to. Or else his defense, I don't care who's going to, who's running it. You could bring Belichick in his prime in to run the defense, and it's not going to make a difference. You got to have players too. So let's see if they can get that done. But, I do think if given players and let Jim Schwartz run that system of his, Kenny, I think we'll see some improvement on the defensive side of the ball next year.
Well, he also was asked about the linebackers on this roster and the fact that they're
not good enough
playing linebacker, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of I don't think he's going to ruffle some feathers behind closed doors. I don't know if he wanted to in his introductory press conference. He said, well, you know what? I've had all different types of linebackers, sizes of linebackers. But the most important thing, he said, I want him to play fast and think quick. Smart, fast, physical, not a lot of hesitation guys.
Yeah.
And so Jay, okay, fine. Phillips, and like I said, with Taki and Walker, don't know if they'll be 100%. So that's an area via trade, via free agency, where they definitely need to address it so he can get some guys in that front seven that will be able to impact the game, like he said, that they want to. So those are the areas. And then, Reg, on the other side of the ball, I need me another wide receiver, because Anthony Schwartz is not the answer as the speedster to take the top off the defense. You bring in one Schwartz, you can get rid of the other one. As far as I'm concerned, Anthony Schwartz, goodbye. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. And go get yourself a speedy wide receiver. Again, they're picking 43rd, 44th, something like that in the draft, whatever it is, but that's in the second round. So don't know if you can find one. I haven't studied the wideouts yet, how deep they are. But that might be an area that you look for some help there in the second round, not the third round or later, right? If you can find a speedy receiver in the draft there. If not, then again, in free agency or a trade. Made a great trade last year to bring in their number one receiver, Amari Cooper. So for me, wide receiver would probably be fourth on the list. I'm going D tackle, D end, linebacker, wide receiver, my biggest needs now that I've got my defensive coordinator taken care of.
Yeah, well, sure. And again, to me, though, I will, and I think they'll go bring one in. I don't know if you're going to get something like, Amari Cooper again, because, Amari, Donovan Peoples-Jones, they both had real good years.
Yes, they did.
But they're not take the top off defense guys.
Right.
So that's what they thought they were getting in Schwartz. As you said, that's gone, that's done, goodbye. They like David Bell, but, quite frankly, David Bell is honestly just the third version of Cooper and Peoples-Jones. He's not a burner. No, you're good. He's going to be a possession guy. He's got good size. He'll catch the football, but you're going to get somebody that at least can give the presence of taking the top off a defense, Kenny. And so Andrew Berry, that's something he's going to have to find a way to make happen, because it is a need. Yes.
All right, Reg, let's do this. Let's get a break in right now. We'll put a bow on the Browns right there and leave it there until they do something else. And when they do, of course, on the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast, we'll break it down for you when it happens. But when we return, we'll take a look at the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship, break down those games for you and see who we think is going to be headed to the Super Bowl this year and play for that Vince Lombardi trophy. That comes your way next when the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast continues here on the Press Play Podcast Network, powered by MGM Northfield Park.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tyrus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tyvis, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
everybody. I'm Gary.
And I'm Jason. Opening cards as a kid, no matter what was in the pack, you always had that stick of chewing gum. Well, it turns out Gary and I opened up a box of 86 Tops last year, and let me tell you, the chewing gum does not age well.
Join us on the Ball Card Show,
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
And we continue with the Red Guy and Rhoda podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network, powered by MGM Northfield Park. Northfield Park is your home for live and simulcast racing. Catch the excitement of live harness racing every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday evening at 6 p.m. That's your post time. Wager and win daily on top thoroughbred and harness tracks from around the world, with action starting around noon. Plus, enter to play the free handicapping contest every Sunday for a chance to win some cold, hard cash. How about $500 top prize? Registration begins at 11 a.m. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. Well, Michael Regai, we are taping this on a Sunday night. Divisional games were played this weekend, and the Cincinnati Bengals go into Buffalo on Sunday and spank the Bills 27-10. Kansas City holds off Jacksonville 27-20, but their quarterback, oh boy, he doesn't seem to stay healthy in the playoffs. When he gets hit, it's a big injury, high ankle sprain for Patrick Mahomes. He says he's going to play next week as they host the Bengals. But Reg, the Bengals don't fear them when he's healthy. They're 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes, regular season and postseason, including a win this year at home against the Chiefs and at Kansas City last year in overtime in the AFC Championship game. Let's start there with those teams and your thoughts on that matchup next Sunday at 6:30 in KC.
You know, Kane, a lot of people told me for the last couple of days after that the matchup was decided, oh, yeah, you just laid it out. Well, Cincinnati can't keep beating Kansas City like this. Why can't they? Well, what do you mean they can't keep beating Kansas City like this? They won 3 in a row from them. Don't tell me that hasn't certainly caused a little bit of situations where Andy Reid and his coaches are like, what the hell we got to do to beat this team, right? And Kenny, I know he's in the division. I know Browns fans, you probably don't like him, even though, you know, he's born and raised here in the state of Ohio. But Kenny, Joe Cool, man. Joe Burrow, Kenny, he's magical, man. He's got that, whatever you want to call it, he's got that factor that allows him to lead impressively and come up with big play after big drive after touchdown drive to have his team win. Again, you can hate him all you want because he's a Cincinnati Bengal. Man, Joe Cool is special. And Kenny, for that reason, him playing the way he is, they've proven to me everything they need to prove. I know, you could be a team like Kansas City 4 times. Like I said, why not? I think they're going to go beat Kansas City again for the 4th straight time and reach the Super Bowl for the 2nd straight year.
Reg, I picked the Bills to win because I was worried that 3 starters were out on the offensive line for the Bengals.
How about
that? Picked the Bills. Yeah, I picked the Bills at the beginning of the season to win it all. So I was staying with my pick. Yeah. And I'm there at home. Damar Hamlin's going to be in the building because these two played on Monday night. The game was postponed. That horrific, incident that happened there. Thank God Damar Hamlin is getting better, and he was at the game today. So I'm thinking at home, the emotion there. Bengals are minus 3 starters on the offensive line. But then the snow came, Reg. And what do you know? The snow actually helped the Cincinnati Bengals because it slowed down the pass rush, I think, of the Bills to go along with a great game plan from Zach Taylor. And I've questioned him numerous times, especially when he's playing the Browns. What the hell kind of play call is that against the Browns? Why aren't you running the ball against the Browns, right? Well, his game plan against the Bills in Buffalo, short, quick passes, the running game, to take some of the pressure off. And the defensive line dominated that game as well as the offensive line, and the snow, the weather helped them. Reg, I'm impressed, man. The Cincinnati, and you're right, Jack. You call him Joe Cool. I call him Jackpot Joey because they hit the jackpot when they got this kid. And all he does is win, 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 no matter what. It's what he does. It's who he is, right? Son of a coach. And there's something special about that when you got a son of a coach. And I still scratch my head and say, what the hell were the Buckeyes thinking when, I know he balled out at Ohio State, Dwayne Haskins, but he didn't win a Heisman. He didn't win a national championship. And they chose Haskins over Burrow. And that's when Burrow decided to transfer. And to this day, the best quarterback to come from Ohio State in the NFL is Mike Tomczak, and he wasn't even drafted, right? So,
No.
I look at that. It baffles my mind that the Buckeyes can't put a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback in the NFL. Oh, wait, they did, but they let him go to LSU, and now he's another win away from taking the Bengals to back-to-back Super Bowls. So I agree with you. They've got a fantabulous chance of going into Kansas City. They aren't afraid of KC.
No.
They weren't afraid of Buffalo, Reg.
No.
Last week in the locker room, Zach Taylor, they showed the footage, and he's like, okay, up next we got to go to Buffalo. And before he could even get it out, the mindset of that team was, no, they're not. We're not playing them. They're playing us.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills are playing us. That's how confident Cincinnati is. And Jamar Chase and Jackpot Joey, whoo, boy, that's the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. And with a bum ankle, high ankle sprain, they're not going to be afraid of Mahomes if he was healthy. But the fact that he's going to be banged up, Reg, I'm with you. I'm taking Cincinnati to go in there and upset the Kansas City Chiefs next week and get back to the Super Bowl.
You alluded it as well quickly a moment ago. Make no mistake, today, from that very first drive of the game and the very first defensive series, without three starters, three offensive line starters of the five. Make no mistake, their O-line and D-line dominated that football game from the first drive right through its conclusion. They were tremendous. So, they've got that kind of mindset. We got a lot. We got Burrow, we got Chase. Mixon runs the ball well. P. Ryan can run the ball well too. We got receivers behind, with Chase. I mean,
Higgins,
my goodness, T. Higgins and Boyd and their tight end. Listen, they've got everything they need, but those offensive and defensive lines, Kenny, that's when you got something like that can win on the road in January, man, you have hit you've hit the total bonanza with that. And they certainly, I'm picking them to win again next week. NFC side, Kenny, I picked Philly to start the year. I believe they're a little better than San Francisco. We're going to find out now, right?
Yep.
That should be a hell of an NFC matchup. But like I said, I'm going Cincinnati and Philadelphia in the big game, and why it wouldn't surprise me. Nothing that the Burrow and the Bengals do surprise me. Jalen Hurts is a hell of a quarterback too. I was
wrong on him, Reg. I didn't think it would work. That running quarterback, I didn't think it would work.
I know.
The fact that he did hurt
and
his shoulder.
He's about maybe 6 foot, probably 5'11". I'm worried about that. Maybe $180, $185, but it has not put a halt to anything he or they want to do yet. And I'm impressed, and I'm a believer in what they do offensively. And, too, from a coaching standpoint, I think they got the goods. So a Cincinnati-Philadelphia Super Bowl to me, Ken, is I think what we're going to get. And I'll take Philly to if that's the one, I'll take Philly to win that.
All right, here's what I'm doing right now, Reg. Since you picked Philly at the beginning of the year, hold on, let me do. I've just gone into my Bet MGM app right now, Reg, since betting is legal in the Buckeye State.
That's
now, right?
Yeah.
So you picked Philly at the beginning of the year. I haven't been doing real well on my free bets that they gave me. Okay.
Oh,
Reg?
yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to take your advice. And I'm going to put Philadelphia in here. I'm going to see what odds I can get on Philly and Cincy playing and Philly winning. That's going to be my parlay. I'm going to take
All right.
Philly in the NFC to get there, Cincy in the AFC to get there, and then Philly over Cincy in the Super Bowl based on your knowledge of things. And I'm going to load that into my app, and I'll split it with you if I win. How's that?
You have to split it with me. I you know, if that's the way you want to roll, but I really, real big admirer of those two teams and their coaching staffs and the way they're playing right now. I mean, you know, San Francisco, today, though, they were, Kenny, they could have been had by Dallas today. I don't know how much you watched of it. They could have been had by Dallas today, and the Cowboys just didn't have enough to get it done. They hung around, but yeah. So that's my call. I think that's what we're going to see. Cincinnati, Philadelphia.
Reg, I watched both games. Philadelphia kicked the crap out of the Giants, as I thought they would, right?
Yeah.
Their defense, again, the two defenses, what do? They rush 4, drop 7.
Yeah.
The two best defensive lines are San Fran and Philadelphia, right? Philly,
Yes.
I think, has 3 guys with double-digit sacks this year. And then
3 is correct, yes.
Yeah. Bosa leads that very good defensive line for San Fran as well. But, the Purdy thing, he's been doing a nice job. Today, it wasn't pretty, but it was pretty enough, right?
Yep.
To get the job done 19-12. They win today over Dallas, who's a fraud. They cost me. By the way, 2 weeks ago, Reg, I had a 6-team parlay, right? 6-team parlay 2 weeks ago. I got to tell you this, right? And I'm on my BetMGM app, and I got 6-team parlay that would have paid me like $2 and some change, right?
Okay.
And it's one of these free bets that they give you and everything, right?
Yep.
So I'm in there and I'm checking them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 for 5. All I needed was the Cowboys to spank the Commanders on the money line, and I go 6 for 6, and I cash in.
No,
of course,
no points, money line. All you do is win.
Money line.
Just
That's
win.
it.
Wow. Yeah.
Just win the game. And what did they do?
Yeah.
They wet the bed
They didn't
against
win
the
the game.
Commanders. Yeah. And Dak Prescott played his worst game of the year, and there went my parlay. So that's why I said I'm going to take your advice. Cowboys are a fraud. Giants were a fraud. Good for them to get there with Danny Dimes and whatnot. But, I like Philly next week, too. They're at home. They've got the better quarterback. I think they have just as many playmakers. I like their D-line a little bit better than San Francisco's. So I think it'll be a close game. I haven't looked to see what the spread is yet on that one, but I like Philly. And with you, I'm going to take Philly and Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. And then I want to see, I'm not ready to pick my winner just yet. As they say in the betting lingo, Reg, I'm leaning towards Philly if that's the case, right?
Right.
See, I'm learning all this stuff, right?
You are.
But I want to wait and see injuries. Who gets hurt next week for both teams and how that could factor in before I make my pick for the Super Bowl. But I'm leaning, as they say in the biz, towards Philadelphia now with the teams that are left to win it all.
Yeah. You know what? It's I hope it plays out this way because I really want to see Cincinnati and Philadelphia because I think it'd be a hell of an intriguing matchup. And
boy,
one that, hey, if Cincinnati again were able to win that, they got there last year. They played well. Matthew Stafford and the Rams were a little bit better. But can you imagine? They go win one more football game and they're in the NFL championship game, the Super Bowl for the second straight year.
How about that? Yeah.
And these are the things that, these are the things going forward. I don't think they're going anywhere. They're well coached. Their roster is really good. It's still fairly young in most areas of it. And so this is going to be intriguing how the Browns go after trying to get over the top. And I know, if they can beat Cincinnati, but you got to beat more than just the one team in order to get where you want to be. And, Browns, Kenny, they really could use like an 11-win season next year, 11 or 12 wins.
Yeah.
Whether that is fool's play, I don't know, but I know they could use it.
Reg, the lines, I'm looking at them. They are posted already on my
what do you got?
BetMGM app. All right, here's what we got. Let's see. Sunday, the first game is San Fran at Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles, a 2.5-point favorite.
Wow, less than a field goal.
How about that?
Okay.
Usually home field's worth at least 3 points, right? So they
normally,
they like San Fran. Now, there are rumors out there that Jimmy G might be available for that game. If not that game, if they get to the Super Bowl, he more than likely would be available. So that's something to keep an eye on this week. So maybe the guys in the desert know something already about Jimmy G, right? I don't know, though. Do you want to upset the apple cart with I think I might have called him Josh Purdy. Brock Purdy? If I did, Brock, I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's a tough call, Kenny, though.
Yeah.
I mean, say they go win that and go play in the Super Bowl, and now you're going to make it so you're going to bring the game. When's the last time Garoppolo played? Is it 7 weeks ago now? That's a real tough call if you are Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. So minus 2.5 Philly, the favorite next week in the first game. Then the second game at Kansas City.
Let me guess.
-1.
It's only 1. I was going to say 2 or 2.5 for that one too. 1.
-1. Yeah. Kansas City -1 at home. Again, and I'm sure that number could fluctuate depending on the information that is leaked out or comes out later in the week on whether or not Patrick Mahomes will play. If not, Chad Henne would have to start for the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a nice drive yesterday.
Yeah, a real good drive. But the 2-yard line, 98-yard touchdown drive.
But there's always something.
If you got to play Henne, well, I mean that changes everything. That line will move to, hell, I'm going to say Cincinnati, even though it's in KC, Cincinnati favored by 3.5.
Yeah. So that's something to keep an eye on for next week. They got the over-unders set at 45 in the first game with San Fran and Philly. And then Cincy at KC, the over-under at 47.5. So there are your numbers for next week's AFC and NFC championship games. Again, the first game comes your way. I think it's at 3:05. The first game will be played. And again, that one is San Fran at Philly. And then Cincinnati at KC, the second game about 6:30. And Reg, how about this? Earlier this year in Cincinnati, 27-24 Bengals win. Last year in the AFC Championship game in overtime at KC, 27-24, the Bengals win. So I think it's going to be just like that, a close game, 3 points. So if you can get 4, if you can bump that up somehow, you can tease that or whatever the lingo is for that to get some points that way, you might want to do that and try and get 4 if you're going to bet the Chiefs. But those are going to be some fun games to watch. And it just goes to show you, Reg, how far the Browns really are away from being an elite team, right? The defenses that we're seeing, the quarterback play that we're seeing, with the exception of Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. You've got to have that elite quarterback. They think they have that with Deshaun Watson. We'll see. They're paying him as such, but they got to get that defense going if they want to be in maybe this position next year or within the next 2 years.
Well, you got it right. Well, the defense, has to get a lot better, and that's why Jim Schwartz is here, as we've talked about. But you're going to have to get top 5 worthy quarterback play from Deshaun Watson to take the Browns where they need to go. Now, and it's got to start right away. I mean, he's going to have a full year this year. So, it's very, very important offseason for him, the Browns, and they still got a ways to go when you're looking at Cincinnati and Baltimore too in their division.
No doubt. All right, Reg, this was fun as always. We'll do this again next week, and we'll get a look at who's going to be playing in the Super Bowl. And coming up, we're going to start breaking down the Cavs as we get closer to that trading deadline, February 9th. The All-Star game looks like Donovan Mitchell going to be a starter at Utah based on the third bunch of votes that came out and everything like that. So a lot to be excited about there. And before you know it, Reg, spring training and the World Baseball Classic going to be starting up, and we'll be talking some Guardians baseball.
Yep, no question about that. But always fun to do it with you, Ken, and look forward to the conference championship games and breaking that down next week too. Good stuff.
Sounds good, Reg, and thanks to everybody out there listening here on the Press Play Podcast Network, the Reg I and Rhoda podcast, brought to you by MGM Northfield Park and produced by our good buddy Ty Courts, who does a fabulous job. Thanks to everybody out there. We'll talk to you again soon.